Tears of Gaia by Redback Spino. Chapter 7 of Wizards, Shards, and Glowing Peaks. As Constance's feeling began to slowly seep back into Twilight's body, the first thing she was aware of was the warmth of sunlight on her fur. It must be dawn, she thought to herself. The next thing she noticed was the dryness of her mouth. Licking her lips, as if to seek out any moisture remaining, she at last forced her eyes open and raised her head. My head's pounding.
You hit your head rather hard,
said a comforting voice somewhere nearby.
Here, to link up.
A canteen of water hovered into her view. It fell in a yellow aura of magic. Twilight graciously accepted it, greedily gobbling the cool water down. Once her thirst was satisfied, she passed the now half-empty canteen and stood back up.
Better?
Twilight nodded. Yeah, thanks, Star Swirl. Then her voice caught in her throat. Finally, her vision cleared, and she saw her friends anxiously gathered around her. Once they saw recognition shining in her eyes, they relaxed and smiled. But it was the pony in the middle that caught her attention. It rendered her speechless.
Star Swirl the bearded smiled at her. Good morning to you, Miss Twilight.
The young unicorn blinked. She blinked again, then again, and yet the image of the stallion that stood before her, impossible as he was, refused to waver or fade. Her knees began to wobble as she fought the urge to collapse again.
Well now! Easy to go there, Twa!
Applejack cried as he leapt forwards and caught the pony on her shoulder before she could fall down on the ground. But that's impossible! You can't be here! Twilight babbled as he found her footing once more. You're Star Swirl the Bearded, the greatest conjurer of the pre-classical era, founder of over 200 spells!
You clearly know your history,
he replied as he sat down by a small campfire off to the side, placing his pointed hat on the ground beside him. But you're dead! Star Swirl looked up at Twilight, his wrinkled face betraying nothing. Sorry, but still, you've been dead for more than 1,000 years, muttered Twilight, as he deftly approached the old stallion. His only reaction was a calm smile.
Indeed. And yet here I sit for all the world to see. Equestria is a strange place, is it not?
Applejack came to join them, standing between Twilight and Star Swirl. Sir Sugar and Strines, but I've never heard of some pony from 100 years ago still coming back to life. Yeah, how can we be so sure you're the real Star Swirl? Rainbow joined in. The stallion was unfazed, however.
Well, feel free to interrogate me until you are satisfied with who I am.
Twilight dug deep into her mind, seeking out the most obscure, unknown things she had learned about the great unicorn scholar. Not something from a book, however. Anybody could pick up a book and study the history of Star Swirl. No, she thought back to her study sessions with Princess Celestia. Having been a personal friend of the ancient wizard, the princess had told plenty of stories that no pony but herself would have known, including a rather embarrassing tidbits about him. Okay, if you really are Star Swirl the Bearded, what was Princess Luna's nickname for you? He tapped his chin thoughtfully for a moment before answering, somewhat hesitantly,
I believe it was Harry Potter, referring to my beard and studies of anthropomorphic spells, was it not?
Twilight nodded dumbly. Yeah, that's correct. In a brief silence that followed as the unicorn tried to wrap her head around the indisputable fact that a unicorn that had been dead centuries ago was sitting there before her, Piggy jumped past her and plopped herself next to Star Swirl. Ooh, that must mean you're like a bazillion years old or something. What's that like? I mean, Grace Smith is the oldest pony I know before you, but you're not answering like this old, sir. What was the question you like 100 years ago? Did you have ice cream back then? What kind of music did you... The hyperactive pony rambled on until Star Swirl finally put a hoof into her mouth.
I shall answer your last questions first. Music of my day was usually very simple. All flutes, drums, and newts. Though I never could quite understand how ponies could play the lute with hooves. No, as I recall, we did not have anything called ice cream. Though the name intrigues me. If you have any, I wouldn't mind trying it.
The old pony replied rapidly.
As for being a bazillion years old, as you so eloquently put it, that's a frank overstatement. At best I'd say I'm around 1,190 years old, if we are including the years between my death and now.
1,190? Lion sakes! I hope I look that good when I'm that old! Choked Applejack, before returning to tending to the slowly recovering Twilight. You okay there, Twilight? Twilight nodded and moved to sit down across her Star Swirl. Okay, so we know it's you. It may not make a lot of sense, but that's the fact of the matter. So my question is, why are you here? Star Swirl absent-mindedly stroked his beard a moment for saying,
You best all sit down, and perhaps get yourselves some breakfast. This may take a while.
The 6 ponies obediently sat down in a circle around the now dwindling campfire. Twilight smothered the dying flames with a clump of dirt before conjuring up one of her own magical fires. As they sliced up the last of their small loaves of bread for toast and chopped up a couple of apples to share, Starswirl told his story.
I suppose, first of all, I should tell you, Twilight Sparkle, that your deposit from Canterlot did not go unnoticed. Her Majesty, Princess Celestia, is fully aware of your quest and what you are seeking.
Twilight gulped. Oh, she's not angry or anything, is she, that I went off without telling her first?
The old unicorn shook his head. No, not at all. In fact, she rather envies you for some of the things you will see on this quest, and I must agree with her.
He added, a wistful look in the surrounding area.
The lands this far north are quite lovely, especially this time of year.
He paused a moment to accept a slice of bread and a few segments of apple from Fluttershy, who sat on his left.
Ah, thank you very much, Miss.
Oh,
Fluttershy stammered, timidly to no pony's surprise.
I'm, Fluttershy.
Beg your pardon.
It's,
His Starswirl bat his ear with a hoof.
Oh dear, is my age catching up with my hearing?
Her name is Fluttershy, Rarity heavily said.
Ah, I see. Well, thank you very much, Miss Fluttershy.
The Starswirl finished. The only reply Fluttershy would come near Mustard was a near silent. He hastily cleared his throat and continued.
Well then, as I was saying, you can relax, Miss Twilight. Celestia is not angry at you, but she is a tad worried.
About what? Twilight asked, leaning forward slightly.
She's worried about what you might run into out here.
Heh! Why is she worried? Rainbow Dash said proudly, thrusting out her chest. We face plenty of nasty stuff around Equestria, and we've kicked the flanks of every single one of them! Starwell's face became clear.
Because what she is worried about is not from Equestria. Something has emerged from the lands far to the south, something that she sought to defeat it and imprison for all eternity.
yeah. No offense to the princesses, but you got a bad record for impersonating ancient evils.
Piggyfight cheeked in. Twilight saw a silently glare before turning to Starswirl. Go on, continue.
Anywho, I trust that if you are seeking out the Tears of Gaia, that you have read my writings on the subject.
Twilight nodded. Starswirl continued.
They will remember the events that led to them being formed, I presume.
Yeah, the war against the Draconiqui and the coming of the... Twilight trailed off as the realization hit her like a comically oversized mallet. You mean the Blight? Starswirl nodded sullenly.
Indeed. The princesses have come to the conclusion that somehow the Blight has regained much of its former strength and is on the move once more.
But what could it have been for the last thousands of years?
Asked Rarity. Starswirl replied.
As I recall, it was trapped with Discord when he was first imprisoned. However, the princesses did tell me that Discord did recently break free, which is a troubling thought in itself.
But we turned him back to stone, Rainbow Karen. That creates an ornament in the Canterlot Gardens now. He took a bite from his slice of toast, munching on thoughtfully before continuing.
Yes, but Discord and the Blight are not one and the same. Discord was only its host. I could only guess, but I guessed that when you were about to turn him back into stone, the Blight fled his body. I suppose that brings us up to now.
He finished, sitting back.
I guess that means he could also be reformed. I gave Celestia that theory, and she said she would look into it.
Yeah, that'll be the day. Just like that'll be, when that happens, I swear I'll actually wear something fancy or frou-frou. Well, now this Blight thing's blank, muttered Applejack. Hey, Starswirl, one thing I never quite got. What exactly is the Blight supposed to be, anyway?
No pony knows for sure,
Starswirl replied.
The only ponies around who still remember it are the princesses themselves, and much as I tried, they refuse to go into great detail about it. As best as I can discern, however, it is some sort of entity or force that takes hold of its victims and changes them, corrupts them into monsters.
Bow, 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 bow. Sorry, smooth flashbacks. Like those yellow-eyed things that attacked us! Cried Twilight suddenly.
Yellow-eyed things.
The 6 ponies nodded as he thought back to the strange cloaked figures that came after them a few nights ago. Yeah! At first we thought they were ponies under those cloaks, but some of them had claws, spines, fangs, antlers, beaks, you name it! Rainbow replied. Starswirl nodded thoughtfully, mumbling to himself for a moment. From within his cloak he extracted a small wooden pipe. It popped into his mouth, removing it every now and then to blow a smoke ring. Much to Pinkie Pie's awe. Not because he could blow smoke rings, oh no, That is because he had seldom seen a pipe that did not blow bubbles.
So the blight is here in Equestria. That's rather troubling to know.
Okay, that does answer a few questions, Twilight interrupted. But you still haven't answered my question. Why are you here?
Starswell smiled again.
Straight to the point, I see. An admirable trait, to be sure, Miss Twilight. I am here because Princess Celestia was worried about you. That, and what may happen if the six of you are not careful. You see, the blight in its present state remains weak, doing little more than attempting to sustain itself, and affect as many poor creatures as it could reach.
His smile tasted a dark and serious frown as he leaned forward a bit, the firelight exaggerating the shadows on his face.
But if the Tears of Gaia were to fall to its grasp, that would be power for it to spread everywhere.
You mean it could take over all of Equestria?
Firesight stammered.
You underestimate the potential of Blight's power.
Starswell replied, shaking his head.
Equestria would just be the start. Savanas, the Dragonlands, Canadia, the frozen north, even across the Eternity's crossing to Zabrika and to the Griffin's kingdoms.
Don't forget the Crystal Empire!
The Crystal Empire? Ha! By my beard!
Starswirl suddenly let loose a loud and strong peal of laughter.
So that disappearing empire finally showed up again then. Incredible!
His laughter, however, was cut off as Twilight very loudly pointed and cleared her throat.
Starswirl turned to himself and carried on. Ah, yes, where was I? Oh, yes. The princess has sent me to help you, and generally keep the six of you safe. Whatever your reasons are for seeking out the Tears of Gaia, it is vital that it is kept as far away from the blight as possible. But if you have indeed encountered them this far north, then they are too close to comfort to the hiding place,
he finished, before popping his pipe back into his mouth. Rainbow Dazzler's the first to get up. Then we gotta get going! The sooner we find this thing, the sooner we can get away from the blight! 5 of the other ponies nodded in agreement. Twilight, however, remained seated, her mind hard at work putting together all the facts. Actually, I'm starting to think twice about this whole journey. What? Applejack was gobsmacked. But this whole trip was your idea in the first place! Don't you want to find no tears?
Indeed, Rarity added. It's not like you to turn away from a chance to learn something new.
Twilight held a hoof.
This is different, though. You heard what Starswirl said. If this blight gets its hooves or claws or whatever it has on the tears, it'd be a disaster for every pony. We should just leave well enough alone and head back home.
Oh, it's far too late for that, my dear Twilight.
All eyes returned to the old stallion, who was extinguishing his pipe and donning his hat once more.
The six of you have come this far already, and if your little skirmish with the blight a few days ago is any indication, they know of the tears and are seeking them out themselves. Our only choice now is to continue on with all haste, and pray that we reach them before the blight does.
Riddas flew behind him, patted him on the top of Starswirl's head, flattening his hat for a moment. I like your attitude, Mr. the Bearded! Let's get a move on! And with that, as he hovered overhead at the head of the group, leading the ponies along the pathway to the mountains, Starswirl followed close behind, but not before casting a rather bemused glance at the headstrong Pegasus and repointing his hat, all the while muttering under his breath,
Mr. the Bearded, honestly, some ponies.
Applejack, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie followed behind, Twilight joining out after them, hastily pointing out their fire.
My dear Twilight, I'm going to use that one,
giggled Pinkie as he bounced along, her mane nearly hitting the overhead branches with every bounce. Come on, my dear Twilight, keep up. Twilight, Applejack playfully called back. Twilight tied her cloak around her withers and hurried along after the giggling column, trying her best to hide her blushing as he shouted back in mock anger, Oh, be quiet, the pair of you! By noontime, the sun hung directly above. The traveling party had passed through the foothills at last, reaching the first step of the slopes of the Crystal Mountains. They were still rather close to the ground, and still patches of grass and dense shrubs grew here and there. But the rest was gravel, earth, and rock everywhere ahead, and all around, most of Rarity's individual delight, there were delicate telltale signs of veins of crystal.
This land is gorgeous!
Rarity voiced her thoughts aloud for the time of the day.
Almost makes this agonizing hike up a mountain worth it. Speaking of which, how much further?
Don't know. Hey, Twilight, what's the real say about how far we go up to these mountains? Applejack relayed the question to the front of the band, whereas he was walking alongside Starswirl, filling him on their journey so far and discussing with him the meaning of Roanoke's riddle.
I'm just figuring that out, actually, replied Unicorn. The next bit of Roanoke's poem said, Where the green meets the white snow, there the second step doth lie. So I'm guessing we just keep going straight ahead until we hit some snow.
Rarity peered up ahead, at the high peaks that loomed overhead. Most of what lay ahead was nothing but slopes of purple-gray stone, dotted with patches of earthly green grass. But miles up ahead in the mountains, where she could see the first white patches of the mountainside, Rarity sighed with weariness, wrapping one of her many scars around her withers, and pressed on. Twilight, meanwhile, slipped her maps and charts away into her bags and concentrated on the road ahead. She could see their destination from where they stood, and the path was clear. Pausing for a moment, she turned and gazed down the direction they had come. The foothills stretched for miles and miles far below them, with streams and patches of trees scattered along the green slopes. She could see the swamplands where they had carried the kelpie, shrouded in mist. And far away, almost out of view, stood the solitary hill and the river that led to Niagara Falls, the place that Rona called home. So far away. It was another couple of hours before the 7 ponies finally reached the first patches of snow on the slopes. And Rainbow Dash was the first to know, as there came a cold, wet sound smacking from she was flying above the group. Pinkie Pie scampered up along the snowbank, giggling as the blue Pegasus chased after her, snowball in hand, and shaking the snow from her face. "Oh, I'll get you for that, Pinkie! Come here!" But Pinkie Pie did not stop, or even slow down. In fact, she somehow managed to stoop for another clump of snow, squeeze it into a snowball, and fling it at Rainbow Dash, all at the full carrying speed. However, her aim was off this time, and Snowball whizzed west, just to the left of Rainbow's flapping wing. Her aim was no better, as the snowball intended for Pinkie Pie instead knocked Applejack's hat clean off. And with that, the game was on! Applejack and Pinkie teared up, tossing and bucking snowballs at Rainbow, all the while frantically dodging the icy projectiles as they were magically flung by Rarity. With a gleeful laugh, Twilight bounded into the fray, her magical roar already enveloping balls of snow from the ground. Star Swirl, however, simply stood by and watched the battle as the laughing mare threw snowballs hither and yon, sitting down on a nearby outcrop of rocks. He pulled his cloak around him and shook his head.
Honestly, you'd think they were little more than foals.
Any further musings he may have had were interrupted as a stray snowball came careening out of the sky and landed slap bang in his face. The snowball fight died down in an instant as the 6 mare stayed back in shock. Star Swirl showed no emotion, staring blankly as blobs of snow dripped off his face and droplets ran down his beard. Twilight's ears drooped in shame, and she timidly began to approach the silent standing, an apology forming in her head. "What's that, Venice?" as she saw a mischievous grin on Crazy's face.
Then again, it has been over 1,000 years,
he whispered, as he telekinetically scooped up a snowball and trotted straight at the mares. By the time the 7 very exhausted ponies sat on the rocky copse, another of Twilight's magical fires melting the snow from their fur and cloaks. The sun was beginning to fall behind the horizon. While the others relaxed by his campfire, making conversation amongst themselves, Twilight sat with Star Swirl, as he attempted to decipher the last lines of the riddle. "Look to the shore in the midnight's glow, to seek the jewel of Gaia's cry." Well, we're at the point where the snow meets the grasslands, so I suppose this is where we're supposed to look to the shard, Twilight said. "The question is, what shard? This whole place is made of nothing but rocks and crystals. There are bound to be shards of it all over the place. Which one do we look to?" Star Swirl looked around himself, before peering intently at the parchment on which the riddle was written as he put away his pipe.
Well, here's something that might be a note. You see, Roanoke wrote this herself, and I noticed when she wrote the word shard, 'twas with a capital S.
Oh, yeah. So we're not looking for a shard, we're looking for the shard. Twilight scribbled a hasty note discovery down on a separate scroll. But what about Moonlight's Glow? Do you have any clue what that one might mean?
The bearded stallion took another puff. That remains to be seen. If I were to guess, I suggest we keep our eyes open when the moon comes out.
Standing up, he headed over to where Applejack and Pinkie were putting together supper.
In the meantime, I am absolutely famished.
The pair had put together a simple meal of bread and cheese, grilled together over the fire. Applejack, in a stroke of intense good fortune, had discovered a small patch of dandelions growing at the base of the rocky corpse, and added them to the sandwiches. Simple, but indisputably delicious. As they dined, Twilight found that she could no longer keep herself a question that had nibbled her mind ever since she had awoken to find Star Swirl before her. "Hey, Star Swirl?" He mumbled through a mouthful of grilled cheese and dandelion. He quickly saw it.
Oh, sorry. What is it?
"I was just wondering, how did the princesses do it to bring you back to life, I mean? I once read that life and death was one thing magic had no power over." Star Swirl put his sandwich down for a moment.
Oh, is that what they tell you these days?
"What do you mean by that?" asked Twilight, cocking her head.
Well, allow me to answer your question with another question. What do you think would be easier to keep a unicorn from doing? A spell that they know exists, but are expressly forbidden from ever using, or a spell they don't know exists at all?
Twilight was a little confused. Well, the second one, obviously. How would you perform magic that you don't... Oh! Then it came to her, the meaning of his words. There was magic that had power over life and death. The princesses kept it a secret.
Indeed, my dear Twilight, he replied. The Majesties used an ancient magic that only they knew. As a matter of fact, I recall Celestia saying that she and Luna personally destroyed all notes concerning such magic, the moment that they had mastered it themselves. That is how they resurrected me. Or, I rather suppose reanimated would be more of an appropriate word.
Reanimated? Why?
Well, quite simply, because I am not truly brought back to life. Not permanently, at least. They poured a tiny portion of their own life force into my body. They keep me alive until my task is done.
Your task being accompanying us in helping our quest, right? Twilight asked. Starswirl nodded. Both ponies became silent for a time, pulling their clothes against the blinding winds, which sent their manes and tails billowing in front of them and bit at their coats. As he gazed out in the direction they had come, Twilight saw a light in the distance. On the shadows of a high mountain peak on the horizon, so he could see a shimmering white light on the mountainside. Even from this far away, on the very borders of the kingdom, one could see the shining glory of equine civilization that was Canterlot. Slightly nearer, on the plains between the Crystal Mountains and the equestrian capital, were the tiny specks of a warmer yellow light. No doubt small villages and settlements dotted about the flatlands. Somewhere out there is Ponyville, she thought to herself. Somewhere out there, Spike is probably snugged up in his basket in his library. I sure hope he's doing all right. Of course he's all right, said another voice in her head. He may only be a baby dragon, but he's more mature than one would expect of his age. Once you get those tears and them safely back to Camelot, you'll be able to see him again. Twilight laid down on the stony corpse, and it rested her head on the forelegs. Not far to go now. Through her closed eyelids, she noticed a silvery white light from above. Opening her eyes, she looked up and saw above her head Luna's shining full moon, bathing it all below in a gentle white light. Twilight hoped inwardly that Luna knew how appreciated her night was becoming. Most ponies still prefer the safety of their beds during dark hours, but every pony held a certain appreciation for the beauty of the moon. But another light shone too, from behind her. She turned her on the spot, and her eyes went wide as dinner plates. Towering high above the plateau where they rested was a glowing mountain. Its peak stretched high up into the clouds, but from the mountain top, and to a lesser extent the entire mountain, there came an eerie glow of blue and white.
Ethereal,
whispered an awestruck Starswirl from behind her. Twilight turned in front of the amazing sight for a moment. Huh?
Oh, that was the old dear folks' name for it. I suppose you know it better as Lapis Meridium.
Young Unicorn gasped. Of course! Lapis Meridium! One of the rarest gems in all of Equestria, said to only be found in a single place in all the land.
A mysterious and magical crystal, which is said to only mirror the light of a full moon.
Starswirl continued.
And therein lies the final resting place of the Tears of Gaia.
As the moon was briefly hidden behind a cloud, the glow faded a moment. Twilight didn't realize just how much her head was tilted back, just to see the top of the mountain. So, that's our way to go tomorrow then.
Indeed.
Around mid-afternoon the next day, the band of ponies were a good 3/4 up the mountain. Though their ascent was slowed by the winding path, they were forced to take in order to scale the sheer size of the peak. The sky was clear and cloudless, but Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy were forced to join their earthbound friends on the mountain. The wind was blowing so fiercely, so the ponies leaned to the side of the mountain, doing all they could to avoid being blown off into a sticking demise on the ground far below. Twilight pushed with her hose through the ever-deepening snow on the mountainside, Starswirl trudging on behind her. They were heaving themselves up a particularly steep rise of stone, the Lapis Meridium completely invisible in the daylight. Somewhere under the thick blanket of frost, the Unicorn pushed forward with another step and felt with delight, her hull leveling out. Hey! It lands out here! She called out to her friends below. A ride cheered, greeting her good news, as the 7 ponies made one final push forwards, until every pony was standing on the ledge. Wowzers! This must be the highest mountain in Equestria! Said Pinkie, peering over the side of the mountain below. Applejack nodded. I wouldn't be surprised if you were right, Pinkie. Even the Smoking Mountain wasn't this high up. As we rested on the sledge, Rainbow Dash felt the wind die down considerably.
to the point where she would actually take to the air and fly a bit. As she exercised her wings by doing a few loops and spins around the edge, she had an idea. Hey, well, let's die down a bit. How about I look around for a bit, see if there's anything worth checking out? She called to the earth below. Applejack was hesitant. I don't know, Rainbow. Remember what happened last time you went scouting out alone?
Oh, come on, Applejack, Pinky replied. That was like camping in a swamp. Look at me out here.
Twilight nodded. She's got a point. I doubt there's anything else lurking on this mountain other than us. Rainbow grinned and took off like a shot, taking an arcing path around the mountains. She looked over every possible angle of the mountainside, keeping an eye out for anything unusual. It was only as he made a second pass around the peak she spotted something just around the right where the pony sat.
Hey, I see something!
She cried as he made her return flight.
Just around the mountainside, there's another big ledge with a cave in the rock.
Twilight looked up upright.
A cave? Are you sure?
Rainbow nodded. Positive. And it sure as hate didn't look like a natural cave either. It was really smoothly carved in the rock. A big square doorway. And there was something carved above it. Some funny-looking squeakles. Twilight already packed her things up. It was ready to go.
Lead the way, Rainbow Dash.
When the traveling party came to the second ledge and stood before the keystone opening, Twilight became certain that this was where they were to go next. Starswirl felt it too, even as Rarity, as if some silent voice in their minds was saying, without words, that what they sought lay inside that cave. Twilight and Starswirl examined closely the strange markings and symbols that were engraved in the stone into the doorway, but to little or no success. Neither the young student nor the ancient wizard could decipher or even so much as recognize the glyphs. Well, I see an omega symbol on the second line here, and I'll probably post it in the description down below. You guys can try to decipher it. Right now, as far as this library is concerned, it says, from what I can decipher, it says, come to McDonald's, open from 7 months, from 7 days a week, 7 hours a day. Appointments at 7. Beware the Omega effect. There is a Flareon in your lap. Okay then. Well, I haven't a clue what these carvings mean, but I'm sure they are important. Starswirl muttered as he stepped back to examine the doorway in full. Either way, I can say with almost complete certainty that this is the way to go. First eye quivered as he looked into the darkness of the cave.
We have to go in there, but who knows what's in there?
She's right. It could be a trap of some kind. How do you know where the tears are in there? Asked Rainbow. I'm not sure, Twilight replied, but I'm just getting this really strong feeling that the tears are in there.
Yes,
I feel it too. It's rather like when I'm using my gem finding spell. I just feel drawn to any that are nearby. I'm getting a similar feeling right now, and it's pointing straight into that cave, added Rarity.
and I as well.
Starswirl lit up his horn, biting the entrance in the yellow light.
Perhaps only we unicorns can sense it. Besides, did you see anything else indicative of where the tears might be, Rainbow Dash?
The Pegasus shook her head. Nope! The only thing I saw in the mountains was that interest.
The stallion shrugged. There's nowhere else for it. In we go.
With that, he led his way into the cave. Twilight followed swiftly behind, the rest following after. Within the cave, the tunnel was remarkably smooth and neatly carved, as if the tunnels had been cut into the rock months ago. In the mingled blue and yellow magenta lights of the unicorn's magical auroras, the telltale sparkle of gemstones and crystals could be seen every now and again on the walls. The only possible reward of the tears being at the end of the tunnel kept Rarity from conjuring up a pickaxe and hacking away at the cave walls. So, do you think we'll just find the tears in some room at the end of the tunnel? Twilight whispered, her voice still echoing around the caverns.
Starswirl shook her head. I very much doubt that such a powerful artifact would be that easy to take. I bet my hat that something will be there to stop us. Some sort of spell or enchantment to stop would-be thieves. Be on your guard, my dear Twilight. Who knows what might await us?
The walk through the tunnels was silent for a long while. Ever straight ahead it went, not up or down, not left or right. Surely they would come right through the other side of the peak soon. But then, Twilight saw with max apprehension and excitement, there was a dim light up ahead. Picking up her pace to a trot, her friends followed suit, the cavern echoing with their hostess on the stone. Gradually, the light grew stronger, until an end could be seen to the tunnel. Their rot turned to a canter. Their canter turned into a gallop. We did it, girls! We found the... All 7 ponies then skidded to an immediate halt as they reached the end of the tunnel. The 3 magical lights fizzed and flickered a moment before going out. To say their breath was taken away is no description at all. There were no words left to express their staggerment and shock. Their eyes grew wide, and their knees grew weak. The tunnel grew up to a truly gargantuan cave, roughly hewn from the stone of the mountain. The floor, however, was smooth and clean, save for the occasional gemstone that stuck through the rock. At the far end there stood a pair of tripods. Upon each rested a large metal bowl, one gold and one silver. From some unseen field within the bowl there flickered and blazed strange unearthly flames that changed color endlessly, sometimes being a fiery orange, sometimes a deep earthly red, then neon green and pale white, even black, and even some strange colors that our language could not name, that caused nausea and dizziness to any pony who looked straight at them. But none of these strange things could tear the pony's collective gaze away from the monstrous, crimson-colored dragon that was shackled by a long, heavy chain to the wall, smoke seeping from its nostrils, as it lay intent beyond the burning lamps. Or rather, it had been sleeping. For it is a little-known fact that all breeds of dragon, be they drake, serpent, or worm, are inherently suspicious and very protective of their own. Because of this fact, they often slept with one eye half open, and this eye happened to be staring straight at the 7 ponies, who had just woken him up. I believe I speak for us all when I say, holy crud! Get out there, girls!